Are we live? I'll check it on my phone. Oh no, I think so. I think so. The encoder health is good. All right, let's share it with chat in the Discord. Just a second. I'm gonna go tell my Discord that I'm live. Ooh, should I boost my server for all 18, 22 of us? Let's see. Did I share the right link? Because sometimes I mess it up. Okay, cool. All right, let's get set up while I wait for people to trickle in. Okay, we're gonna do papers like we often do, but I also wanted to do a segment, um, or a few segments. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Yeah. Okay. Haven't shared screen yet on purpose, by the way, for anybody watching the VOD. Trying to start with face cam, at least until I get a few people in here. I think that's better. We'll say I am a little anxious about work. And there's no chatters yet. I am very tempted to go grab my work computer right now and like put it down next to me and check something. But the problem is if I do that, I won't be able to think about anything else, like for the duration of the stream, basically. So that seems kind of like a bad idea. I don't know. I'll give that another minute to stew around in my brain, and hopefully someone comes to distract me from that thought. Okay. We had a viewer requested paper. Ooh, I can also start digging up tech reports while I wait. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Hey everybody, how's it going? I haven't shared screen yet. That's intentional. As long as I'm not really doing anything on the screen, I'd rather just keep it on my face. How's it going? We're gonna do some segments today. You probably saw the different title. I had a funny thought that like I've been leaning on AI assistants more and more to do anything that I can consider dirty work. And lately, like what I do consider dirty work is sort of a moving target. And has come to include stuff like rebuttals for papers. Because it can do a pretty decent job. Especially, I feel like rebuttal is very nicely constrained because my paper already exists. Real criticisms of it exist. And often, if there's a thing to do, I can even point to a couple of references, or there's just a couple of references to look for to support a point or to like expand a comparison or something like that. Um, but as I use it for more and more of these, almost like as I use it more and more to manage experiments that I've designed, as I use it more and more to take open-ended things that I say and try to even find research and build up stuff around it, and as I use it more and more to help me defend my work, I do wonder like what exactly are the limits of what it can't do. I wonder that every day. I'm always trying to like limit test, and today I kind of want to see if it can do what I do on the stream better than me. Specifically, I want to see if it gives better answers to super open-ended questions I get about like career and research advice. So I've got that open on the panel here. Hey, how's it going, Sams? So I might put a couple like the FAQs in here and just see what it spits out. And you could say like, why wouldn't I have checked that before? I just didn't feel like it, right? I might log in on my work ChatGPT just to get like um the latest models in like the maximum mode. We'll see though. We'll see. I'm kind of curious what comes out of the one that like you could get even without logging in. So we'll see. Let me share my screen now. I think it's a decent time for that. Okay, here we go. So I was gonna look up some tech reports. We'll do that segment too. Crazy week for that. Although I don't think, what is the Kimi K3? They have a blog, right? They just haven't released the weights. I actually haven't looked too close at this yet. Like I've looked at the results on different sites, and actually this will be a fun one to pull up. Obviously not the text image leaderboard. That's just the one I look at the most. This will be the fun one to look at. There we go. Okay, so we got the Kimi K3 Tech blog. Ooh, can we? Oh, okay, this is Interesting. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Maybe there's something to do here. Um, we'll try to make the comparison a little scientific though. Wait, like, can I do this? Am I allowed? Am I allowed to do that? 2.6 was the default for some reason. I just switched it to 3. Do I even get to select with ChatGPT these days? Here, let me try to sign in with my academic account, which I don't think I've ever used for ChatGPT before. Or if I have, it'll tell me right away. Oh, here, let me pull that window to the side so I can log in real quick. Hang on, 1 second. 1 second. Let me just log into that. Because I want to make sure, like, I'm to make things fair between like ChatGPT 5.6 with like 10 different modes, and I don't even know if they have 5.6 in the web app. It might just be capped at 5.5 or 5.4. To make it fair, it feels very, I don't know. But I at least want to make sure that I'm not using like 5.2 or something, because that would be stupid. Um, Sorry, it's logging in on the other screen, just in case it shows anything sensitive. It shouldn't. Um, okay, we are logged in, so we should be able to control stuff like, or can we not? I haven't used their like consumer grade one lately. I haven't really used anything besides Codex in a minute. Actually, something I started doing this week is um, my VS Code tunnel kept dying. Like I set up a tunnel that communicates with Microsoft, and then I communicate with Microsoft to get like to actually work on the. My tunnel doesn't go straight to my locals, what I'm saying. It goes through Microsoft. And somehow the connection from my tunnel to Microsoft kept dying. So I couldn't actually use my VS Code local or in the browser. My workaround has just been to stop using VS Code. Like I kept that same server active, and I'm just connecting to it directly in the terminal. And I now do all of my work out of a terminal. I mean, I kind of was anyway, but like I would use Visual Studio Code as the wrapper for that terminal. Now I just use that terminal. Pretty funny. And instead of like, I would use VS Code before to like read stuff sometimes or look at images or videos. Typically when I was looking at videos, I was already just making some dashboard and making a tunnel for that and looking at it in browser. But now if I need to look at single files, I have a different agent on the local that I can just tell like, hey, like SCP this down real quick, and it'll grab it. Um, there's certainly a better way to do this. I don't mind it though. I've always kind of liked just using terminal for things. Okay, what were we doing? We were trying to see what happens if I click Codex. I've never tried to mess with Codex in browser. I don't want to download Codex to my fun computer right now. Let's just stick to this. If I say something, can I select model here or mode? I haven't used free in forever, apparently. Like, I don't see any, so I'm just using their everyday. So that's fine. I mean, we'll compare if I am a person who doesn't pay them money, which I do pay them money but not here. Um, yeah, what kinds of answers will I get? And I guess we'll see. All right. What else do we want to prepare? So there's Kimmy K3. I feel like there were a couple other. Let me browse a bit for tech reports, or if any of the two people in chat right now saw any tech reports that you thought were cool from the week. We can look at those. I'm already losing track of what we looked at last week, honestly. There's just too many things coming out. Like, it feels like basically every day. I'm looking, though. I have a couple of channels where people... Ooh, I saw this, but I don't know if it's recent. Is there a tech report for it, though? Maybe. It's a German English sovereign model. Yeah, here we go. It is recent. Yeah, we can look at this. It's not exactly like a frontier model, or I say it's not exactly. It is not a frontier model, but it should still be kind of interesting to look at. Um, K3 is out. Should we look at Inkling? Yeah, we should look at Inkling. Okay, so Inkling. Is this gonna, I'm sorry, I'm briefly scanning to see if we're gonna get any methodology or if it's just a bunch of results. We're gonna get a little bit, yeah, right here. Okay, making, I see. Benchmark making. I should have looked at, I didn't even notice that that was there. Okay, this is fine. Yeah, so we have Inkling, which is actually like a pretty strong open weights model. We have this model, which is not very strong, but just kind of interesting to see sovereign models out in the world. I have two of these open for some reason. I don't need the quick start. I just need this. So these tech reports, we're going to try these, compare them to each other. Got a viewer paper. Um, this is complementing the Kimmy we're going to look at. Okay. What else do we want to look at today? I'm just scanning to see if there's any other tech reports that I should have. And once again, this is a great time for any of you to share any papers as well, tech report or otherwise. I'm just trying to make sure that on my end I get tech reports that people might think are interesting. Okay. All right. I don't think Hassan is here, so let's wait on latent MOE. I'm actually kind of inclined to wait a couple more minutes in general before I start like a serious segment. How would you feel about watching me play a trivia game for like 3 minutes while we just wait for a couple more people? Thoughts? I'm not trying to do anything offensive. It's just like I've been thinking about this problem of like waiting until the stream reaches critical mass before I do the really interesting stuff. But like the trade-off there is like if I'm doing something that people don't think is interesting when they happen to click, they don't actually stay, and so we don't reach that like critical point. So I don't know. I do like this game though. I've been considering posting to the Discord anyway because I think it's fun. It makes me feel like I'm very bad at trivia, whereas typically I like to think of myself as being decent at trivia, but these just have like some really hard. It's sometimes it's just hard for me. Like I am not so inclined to get wow. I like this. I would never get these. I'm shocked I got this one. I know like one dubstep artist and it happens to be Skrillex. Let's see. No, it's okay. I almost lost that one for absolutely no reason, which would have been crazy. My best ever, by the way, is I think I've gotten 6 of these before. I think that's my best of all time. Uh, Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, this is just my day if we're getting Dead Sea Scrolls in there. Because, like, I'm decent at history of religion. I'm decent at science. I'm very bad at, like, pop culture. I say I'm decent at science and then... Okay, black holes. Uh, this can't be Event Horizon, right? Because Physical Horizons is the... Okay. Normally the tags don't overlap the article title like that. Anyway, what the game is, by the way, is I'm guessing a Wikipedia article based on the categories that we see here. Maybe I should play while speaking more actively since I'm doing it on stream. 19th century German journalists, LGBTQ people, gay journalists, gay writers, German gay. I feel like I should know this, right? Like this person would be famous, but nothing's coming to mind. Like this is a point where I'll just guess like random people that I vaguely think are German. Just to not miss it because occasionally I see those tags. I think I don't know this. I skip, and then it's somebody that I maybe would have guessed for no reason. Um, Anti-war songs. See, like I'm not even gonna try on this one. Like I don't know. AIGA medalists, American digital artists, American women graphic designers, Apple employees, Facebook employees, interface designers. Yeah, I just don't know. Susan Kerr. Okay, cool. 1983 hoaxes in West Germany, historiography of Nazi Germany. I don't know. Hitler Diaries. So I should have known that. See, this is why I never get more than 6. I get a few, and then I hit some, and I just get crushed. But I think it's a fun game for the most part. Accelerator physics, electrostatic. Is this going to be particle accelerator? I'll just put particle and collider in there. Oh, Van de Graaff. Okay, sure. Yeah, see, we got the first 5, which feels good. But they were also easier ones. Like 80 or 86% of players got this one. 35%. Like my hardest one was Skrillex, which 35% of people got. These ones I was missing on the back end are simply harder than the ones I was getting on the front end. It's not like I got worse. It's just a hard game. Anyway, I'll post my score in the Discord. Encourage anyone else to play. I'll put it in cafe. I think it's a fun game. Okay, let's get rolling on the segments. I think we'll start with this one because I think it's probably less interesting than the others. Okay, so it's an open source foundation model for German and English, and it's sovereign. What that should typically mean is that the work is primarily funded by and owned by the government. That's what we mean at IFM when we call it sovereign AI. Is that like it's funded by the United Arab Emirates? Yeah, funded by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy. So that's kind of what it means by sovereign. And it's an open source foundation model for German and English. So it kind of reminds me of our model at IFM, JACE, which is a model for Arabic. Let's see who they compare to, though, and on what benchmarks they're comparing. That's what I'm mainly curious about, because I don't think... I mean, we can see, like, okay, contributions. Best-in-class performance on English and German-based model benchmarks. Code, mathematics, German regional knowledge. Strongest fully open on English and German benchmarks. I think that probably means benchmarks that involve needing to know both English and German, which is a little specific, but okay. They released the full pre-training corpus statistics. Oh, that could be interesting to look at. Published the full learning rate schedule. We'll see what I think about their schedule. Hybrid Mamba MOE design to keep the per sequence cache near constant and context length. That's interesting, I guess. Documented design. Report the data and design ablations behind each choice. Okay, that cool. Complete artifact release. They will release their 30B A3B base checkpoints. Okay, so let's take a look. I do want to see, I didn't notice them talking about it being multimodal in the abstract. We can go check the benchmarks real quick and confirm that it's not a multimodal model. It's probably the fastest way to figure that out and know what we're looking at. I don't see any multimodal here, or here, or here, right? Yeah, MMLU, but not. Yeah, we can check again, see if it's got some vision. Yeah, it doesn't. Yep, okay. So it's a blind model, a nice blind bilingual model. Let's take a look at, I actually don't mind starting out here. Okay, so the 3-phase pre-training curriculum and token budget, 20 trillion tokens consumed in the diverse pre-training. And during the high quality annealing phase, 6.58 trillion tokens. And then during their long context extension, 0.1 trillion tokens. I'll be honest, I don't remember enough about my LLM pre-training fundamentals to know about these numbers here. They're training a 30 billion parameter model, right? So how many tokens per parameter is that? That's a lot. That's like 60 tokens per parameter. No, way more, like 600 tokens per parameter, right? Yeah, wow, okay. That is an amount of tokens that I don't feel like a 30 billion parameter model uses very well. So I'm a little surprised they trained this small model this much as opposed to just consuming slightly fewer tokens and be able to train a larger model. Maybe they were very limited on the... No, they had B200. So they had cards that were big enough. It's a bit odd. It's a little odd. What else? Anything else we can get from this? Oh, sorry, I don't have chat up. Hey, Hassan, I've been good. Trying to get some better segments in the stream. So right now we are doing tech reports. After tech reports, I want to do a thing. Kimmy Tech Report will actually segue into this, where I kind of compare what you'll get just going on to one of these like Kimmy or ChatGPT and asking it the sorts of questions you would normally ask me without paying them money. Then I think I'd like to see what happens if you pay them money, but I'll have to like figure out my work login on some tab. Have I ever been in AdCom? No, I have not been in AdCom. Interesting live video title. Did I miss the man versus machine talk? You didn't miss it. We're going to do that. So it's like I give answers to some questions you guys have, but I'm starting to wonder like how much different or better my answers are than just what you would get out of flagship AI chat windows. Germany mentioned. Yeah, Deutschland mentioned. Okay, final annealing discarded. Sorry, we're reading this backwards, but I kind of don't mind. I was surprised. Like, I don't know. They have decent cards. Okay, let's look again real quick at this fleet that they used to train it. Okay, it is a smaller cluster in fairness. Um, Operated by Deutsche Telekom in Munich. Who else is using it though? Can't they just spend a little more money and train a larger model? It is weird though. Like if we look at who they compare to real quick. Let's see in their comparisons. Sorry, we're still um like I'm not understanding for sure why they don't compare to Gwen or Gemma or anything that's like decent. My LLM friends tell me this just isn't a very strong model, and that's why they don't compare to those models. Yeah, see, they're just comparing to Olmo for some reason, and then I assume this is some European model. Not familiar with this one or this one. Okay, anything else to even look at here? I don't want to waste too much time on this random thing. It's just interesting to me, though. You know, German government decided to spend some money training a model. Ooh, do they talk at all about mining the data? Um, okay, so this many tokens. Phase 1 provides a bulk. Okay, anchored on quality filtered synthetic web text from the 3 Nematron CC releases. Um, okay, supplemented by a large code component. Okay, special system and scientific data. Pre-training SFT mixtures. Dedicated mathematics corpora. See, I'm not exactly okay. I'm not familiar enough with each of these sources to criticize it. I'm also not sure because they said quality filters synthetic web text. I think they mean that the people they get it from already did the filtering. They're not doing further filtering. I will just stick by what I said and say that I'm pretty sure they're just trading on too many tokens for their model size, and they may have been better off just filtering more. Um, I don't know though. It would also be interesting to see them compare against something that's state of the art, even though I know their model is smaller. Is that a reasonable number of hours? 2 months for a 30B model? See, I think 2 months for a 30B model on good cards is just kind of. I can't do the math right now, but. Or I can do a little bit of the math. Like, when I train a 30B non-sparse on B300, um, like, I don't know. Some of these, like, high-level decisions just strike me as, like, a little bit odd. But like I said, not an LLM pre-training expert. I would have to talk. Maybe sometime I should get one of my pre-training friends on the stream and we can have them comment on some of these, like one of these papers that kind of puts a lot more of it out there to see. Ooh, there are some things I do know. They said that they put there. I've been looking for it as I scroll. You might think I'm scrolling aimlessly. I'm actually looking for the plot where they do their learning rate annealing because they said they talk about the schedule. And I thought they would put it in, but I guess it would be a boring plot, right? So let's just look for learning rate. They publish the full learning rate schedules. Where? Oh, it is here. I'm blind. Um, okay, is this a learning rate schedule though? Okay, so the full 20 trillion pre-train is at one schedule, and then they do an annealing for that whole high quality. Oh, they even said it's high quality annealing. Duh. And then they do stable and then anneal for their long context extension. This I think is fairly standard based on what I've talked to people about. Um, the only difference is I suppose I think I've heard some people do some annealing here during their original pre-train. Um, I wish they were showing param norms. Showing this grad norm without param norm is a little unhelpful. because I don't think your grad norm param norm ratio should behave this way. I'm also pretty sure your param norms are getting smaller this whole time. So this is a little weird to me, especially the spikiness. That doesn't necessarily look totally healthy. Looking at like we don't see a lot of these tech reports that put these out for us these days. I might ask some of my buddies to look at it with me. And maybe I'll come back next week and have better comments on whether this is normal or pretty weird. This is also really strange. Like, what happened to their throughput randomly in the middle of pre-training that the model started lagging and got kind of slow? Uh, okay, I think that's all we want from this paper for now. This proves that the secret ingredient to LLM training is crime. Hey, I mean, eh. No, actually, you can do plenty of, like, lately, I think a lot of data. Okay, so for a long time, the secret sauce in data was like a lot of crime. And now I guess some of it is still crime, but it's like maybe not crime exactly the way you'd think. Like you want to I don't know how much I should comment on it actually. I'm going to wait to comment on a lot of things until I read our tech report in a minute. I should be careful what I say other than that. Who's my pre-training friend? Let me check out his papers. Um, I don't know how much about our org chart. I see. I'm always nervous to say too many things about like the internal structure of IFM because I'm not sure what I'm at liberty to say and not say. And also, like right now, it's just me and a few of you. But I'm also just putting this out there for literally anyone to see, including like someone could set up an agentic harness that can watch the freaking video or like read the transcribed audio. And then suddenly like random things I say could become secrets that get like signal boosted. And then suddenly it's like, what the hell is Matt talking about? So I'm always a little nervous to say stuff like this. Hey Raj, how's it going? Yeah, so if I ever get one of them on the show, maybe I will. I've been thinking that would be a good segment to have, but also it's like I think I need to be able to say something more compelling than like, hey, it's like me and like, you know, a few super cool people that watch. I feel like I hate it because I don't like the idea of chasing numbers, but I feel like to even feel comfortable bringing up the stream with other people, it's like I need to be like, yeah, hey, it's like a nice reading group. There's like 30 people that watch. Can you come like, I don't know. Technically, there are. For an hour that we're here, there's like 100 or 150 unique viewers a lot of the time. Um, Maybe that's good enough and I should just get over myself. I don't know. I feel a little insecure. Anyway, so we looked at this sovereign model. I'm pondering still over why they don't at least show, the gap between them and Quen, for example. Oh, I also did want to see where the authors are from. Because I caught that like this German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy funded the project. But I don't know this group. KI Bundesverband? I don't know most of these groups. It looks pretty eclectic though, no? Like everyone's got a different affiliation. Who who is actually like running the I'm very curious about the how this group gets put together with 10 different affiliations. Cool though. It's still cool. Even if it's not like the best model, I still think it's neat. Well, I'll put a pin in it to come back to it when I have like a little bit more context. Um, I had no idea Dr. Huang was Javin? Yeah, Javin's at UMD. Yes, I have interacted with him, and I've interacted with a lot of his students too. I took his class when he got to the school. It was interesting because the first half was like his YouTube videos, very, very polished, and there was like a Kahoot at the end of every class, and that was kind of fun. And then the second half was like totally the opposite, which was a bummer because the first half was super easy stuff that you do in every vision class a million times. And then the second half was also stuff you do in a lot of vision classes, but not necessarily the easier stuff. It was stuff like computing camera priors and like correspondence between images and stuff, where it's like, would have been nice to have the polish on that part and not have it be kind of scuffed. But yeah. Um, Javin's interesting because I think you'll find in academia that every faculty has their like everyone has quirks. And I think you can say something about every prof I've ever met that makes them sound either like incompetent or insane. Um, I can't think of anyone that's not true of. Even my advisor, you can spin certain things that'll make them sound to other people like, oh my God, really? Like the thing that a lot of people outside my lab really struggled with my advisor, and I'll just put him on the spot here, is when he got to the university, he took over two other labs. So he had like 25 or 30 or maybe 35. Like I think the number he would say is 25 or 30, but I think I counted once. And technically he may have at one point had over 30 students assigned to him and lots of different grants. And the things about having grants is some grants have multiple hours of meetings per week. And the grant meetings are sort of like you can't miss those as the advisor, mostly. Um, and sometimes they would move themselves. And so what would happen is if he scheduled a meeting with a student, the grant would need to move, and then he would like not only would he have to accommodate that, he would also have to like accommodate all of like the cascading whatever. Oh, telling that student we're canceled, moving like all these 10 other things. So his solution became like students will just be like standing meetings. Like I'll tell them when I'm around, they should come find me. Or if they see me, come find me, right? So for me, I thought that was really cool and that worked really great. But for some people, they're like, oh my God, you can't just like you don't have a scheduled weekly with your advisor. And it's like the craziest thing ever to them, right? So point being, there are things that are totally normal, even work really well to people like me, that to someone else you could use to make this person sound like, oh my God, really? With Jabin, I'll say his thing too. If you want to work with Jabin, at least at one point in time, this was true. And granted, this is according to his students who could be like embellishing. Um, but it was true of all of them that I ever talked to. Is in your the rule was in your first semester submit something to CVPR, and then you will kind of go from there. The other fun quirk is for the most part. I don't know how much more I should say because he could watch. But yeah, a lot of people thought that that was pretty for some people, I think the idea of a paper, like we can all kind of accept the idea of papers being the boundary between us and candidacy or us and graduation or even in industry, us and some other role. But like I think when you put like a single paper and especially submitting it as a barrier to anything, it starts to feel kind of like offensive in some way or like vulgar almost. But yeah, he wanted to see like that you would put in the work and submit a paper, and then that was kind of like a barrier to being like working with him more. Lots of other faculty that had things like this though. Like I won't name them, and maybe I'm even talking about Jabin with some of the things, but I won't say that he is. Other fun quirks. There's a professor, very famous one, where grants that he got would fund his senior students, but the junior students would do all the grant work. His senior students would hardly even, some of them wouldn't touch the grants that they were funded by. And junior students that were not funded by the grants would do all the grant work. And there would be some threshold where you'd impress them enough, and suddenly you were only working on papers, you were no longer working on grants. There's other process I've seen that are almost the total opposite. The grants mean everything to them. And like a lot of grants have several groups on it that even compete with each other. And sometimes the bottom groups get taken off the grant. And there's one professor I know, not at UMD, where he's so extremely competitive that like if you're his student and you want him to like you make sure that you're always at the top of the leaderboard on the grant. To the point where all of his group's papers mostly revolve around the grants, which is pretty abnormal. A lot of groups, my group, for example, no papers around the grants. None. Your paper was something totally different. You just do the minimum to satisfy the grant. But his group, it's like you do everything you can to win the grant. And at conferences, he would like flex when he's talking to other professors, like, ha, we're beating you right now. Like that was like a big deal. He had like bragging rights around like being at the top of the grant leaderboards. Um, what are some other fun professor quirks? Um, there's one prof who like 2 years ago came up to me and asked me how transformers work. An ML prof, like not a theory guy either, like a practical ML prof. Uh, what else? Other fun ones. Um, one fun thing is no, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't. Okay, that's enough fun professor quirks. Okay, great content at Excellence YouTube channel. Yeah, his content's fun. He puts a lot of effort into those YouTube videos, and they're pretty good. His agentic harness might be watching your live streams just like IFM does. Yeah, that'd be pretty funny. Low audio? Like, did we drop at all, Raj? Did I lose audio? Because the cable, I thought I fixed it. Did it drop or are we quiet? We might be quiet because I'm kind of leaning back a little bit. That's kind of on purpose because I can peak kind of high, but maybe I started talking too soft. Can someone corroborate the audio situation? I'm very nervous about it just because we had crazy issues last time. Okay, let's stop rambling about random prof stuff though, and let's take a look at this open weights model. It's a big model, by the way. That's why I wanted to look. It's a 1 trillion parameter open weights model with context window of up to 1 million tokens. And this is why I said I thought it was a bit weird that that 30B model was trained on really 27 trillion tokens, because this 1 trillion model is being trained on 45 trillion tokens, right? 45 TPP may be still on the higher end, I think, of what's like kind of optimal. But still, I think it's crazy to train your small model in 600 tokens per parameter. 40 TPP is high, but maybe, like I said, more decent. Okay. So is it already available, by the way? The big model? Okay, that's just the card. Let's go to Hugging Face. Can I already download the... I think so, right? I actually don't know how many 20 gigabyte files correspond to a 1 trillion parameter model. It's 2,000 terabyte. 2,000 terabytes, am I insane? It is 2 terabytes, right? 20? 20 times 100? Yeah, 2,000 gigabytes, 2 terabytes. Is 2 terabytes the size of a 2 trillion parameter model? Or I should just be able to no. Between the way they're compressed and it's probably at floating point or BF16, right? What's the rule? It's like 2 bytes per parameter, basically, right? So yeah, two terabytes for a trillion parameter model. I think that makes sense. Um, okay, what else? We wanted to make customization accessible for more use cases, so it's available for fine-tuning on Tinker. Asked Inkling to fine-tune itself using Tinker wrote its own fine-tuning job, ran it, evaluated the result. A lipogram model that never uses the letter E, and asked it to fine-tune itself. So it self-fine-tuned to never use the word E by writing a little loss for itself and then training itself in Tinker. That's interesting. It's designed to be broad. Okay, so let's see how it compares to... cool. We're getting comparison against frontier models, which is nice, because we can actually, like... It's very hard when we go to stuff like that German foundation model, and it's like 4 models I've never heard of in my life that they want to compare against. It's very easy when it's stuff that I use, because it puts it in context. Okay, so let's see. So, um, on saturated benchmarks like AIME 2026, which feels kind of crazy that that's a saturated benchmark, but it is. You know, they've also saturated it, which is cool. Seeing them stack up this well on IF bench makes me wonder if 80 is already kind of saturated there. Mm. Or are they cleanly better than Nemotron? Yeah, right? Which is good. How big is Nemotron 3 Ultra, though? Is that a comparable model? No, right? I mean, maybe as soon as you get over like 400B, it's fine to compare any of these. It's a smaller model. But they're a lot better. What about, do you know how big GLM 5.2's, like, do we know? We do, because it's open, right? It's close to a trillion, right? So this seems pretty decent, right? Like, for the most part, I mean, they're worse on coding. Yeah. So that's kind of disappointing, I guess, right? Like, they're better on these, like, better on vision, better on audio than these at least. Like, because these are very coding focused, right? Like GLM, I think no vision, so they have vision, and they're better on chat. They're worse on no tools reasoning, the GLM, and they're worse on like all the coding stuff. kind of interesting to see someone release a model that isn't. I mean, I guess, but GLM 5.2 is kind of interesting for going all in on coding, like all in, all in. Okay, let's try to look more at method, which I think they put at the bottom. Or do we care about? Do they have any interesting? Okay, so if we're looking at mean generated tokens, does that give any interesting result here? We don't care about the comparison to like old Kimi or even to Nematron Ultra as much as GLM 5.2 and which is just going to get higher scores, except for on the chat benchmark where they get the higher score, except for Nematron Ultra randomly beats them on IF bench. It's kind of weird. Okay. Multimodality, which is one of their strengths, right? Do we compare against any of that? We do, against some of the larger Quen and Gemini Pro. How do we do? Better than Quen, worse than Gemini for MMMU Pro. Same thing for the other two, for Charkive. Okay. For audio, better than Quen on some, worse on the others. And just worse than Gemini Pro. Okay. Better than the open weights Quen 3 Omni, though, for the audio and for the vision. But what about, like, Quen 3.5 on, like, vision tasks that I'm more familiar with? Do they give that benchmark? I'm looking for it. I'm not familiar with these. And I wonder what the difference is between this and standard MMMU. I wish I saw more vision benchmarks so I would be able to understand its vision behavior a bit better. Because apparently that may be one of its strengths compared to some of the other models. It seems to be decent though. I thought they had some methodology here. They do. Architecture. Mixture of transformer, mixture of experts, transformer. A handful of departures from the common recipe. Mostly DeepSeek v3, but what's different? Interleaf sliding window and global layers at a 5:1 ratio with 8 kV heads. We find that encoding position with the relative position embedding. Wait, they don't use rope? What? What? That is crazy, no? So they use this instead of rope. Maybe we should go look at what that is. We also apply short convolutions at 2 convolutions. After the key value projections on the attention element, these feel so random. I kind of want to see the experiments that led them to conclude that they should do either of these things. That seems really weird. Yeah, we already know how many tokens because we read that. To boost, sorry, I'm ignoring chat again like an idiot. Oh, except luckily no one's saying much. That's great. Hassan said something 4 minutes ago. Here, let me catch up. The audio's fine, Hassan says. So hopefully when I leaned forward, that fixed some things. I think Inkling gets some hype just because USA doesn't often release open source models because they get mocked by Chinese open source models without even considering Kimi K3. Yeah, that's true. And had Thinking Machines released an open source model before this? I think LLMs are being optimized for coding stuff nowadays. Like, are we going to write emails with a giga 3 trillion models? Yeah, I mean, there are tasks to do aside from writing emails, like epistemics or reasoning about facts and truth and logic, right? Without it being literally just math or code. I think there are still meaningful tasks to do in language space. So be careful about boiling it all down to just chat because I think it's a bit more complicated than that. Keep in mind, Gemini 3.1 Pro also sucks. Inkling is disappointing. See, I don't know if Inkling is disappointing because I don't know if they have a better model that's closed source or what their strategy is meant to be. If this is all Thinking Machines has accomplished lately, then yeah, this is disappointing. And I'm pretty sure this seems bizarre. I don't know. I should talk to some friends. Like, maybe I'm embarrassing myself by saying it's bizarre. Maybe this is like the secret sauce or something. We can glance at the paper real quick and see like what this was. I do just want to see if they have any other training detail real quick though. They did an SFT on synthetic data generated by open weights models, including Kimi K2. See, okay, this sounds scary. This almost implies to me that they may have deliberately nerfed themselves by not using strong models to generate their synthetic data. So maybe they just kind of screwed themselves. I have no idea. Um, but mostly it's large scale RL on synthetic and human created environments. This is the way to go, by the way. And this is the what I meant when I said that crime is not necessarily the secret sauce, because like I think there's a lot of engineering effort that goes into being able to scale from 1 to 1,000 to 1,000,000 environments and sandboxes, and like not realizing how important that is and not doing that investment on the right timeline could just mean that like you're like, oh yeah, I have 1,000 environments, this is really cool, and you don't realize that everyone you're competing with has millions or even like hundreds of millions or billions of environments. So you're just kind of screwing yourself on that end. Inkling was our first major training effort and was trained on some GP300s. RL at scale. Large scale asynchronous RL and improvement scaled kind of linearly over more rollouts. Or no, not quite linear, but still getting good improvement over more and more rollouts. See, it's not linear scale. But we're still not saturated, even at 30 million plus rollouts. Specialized, see, 30 million rollouts, that seems low. I don't know though. Again, this is where I don't have all the numbers really top of mind. That one sounds low, but I'm not positive. Early in RL, late in RL. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Let's see if they have any other. Oh, availability. Available on Tinker with a discount, so you can fine tune it. I mean, I think I don't quite understand. I'm not going to obsess too much over their business model. That like trying to understand LLM business model these days is just time I don't have. I do want to see though real quick because they just kind of mentioned in an offhand way that this is their attention. Oh, it's from Vaswani. This is an old paper. So they said they do relative position representation. We present alternative approach, extending the self-attention mechanism to efficiently consider representations of the relative positions or distances between sequence elements. Wait, is this actually just typical? Okay, let's just see the section where they give the clear formula, blah, 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 relative position representations. For linear sequences, edges can capture information about the relative position differences between input elements. The maximum relative position we consider is clipped to a maximum absolute value of k. We hypothesize that a precise relative position information is not useful beyond a certain distance. Clipping the maximum distance, therefore, we consider. So they learn the position representations. Wait, what? So they consider a total of k relative positions. Or no, they consider, yeah, maximum number of relative positions is clipped to and a maximum absolute value of k. I'm a little bit confused by what I'm seeing here then. If we're going from negative k to k, what exactly does that... Hold on. I'm not considering something that should be like really obvious. Um, Clipping the maximum distance also enables the model to generalize to sequence links not seen during training. Therefore, we consider 2k plus 1 unique edge labels. Okay, I'm missing something that must be like really obvious here. Maybe, okay. We propose an extension to self-attention to consider the pairwise relationships between input elements. In this sense, we model the input as a label directed fully connected graph. The edge between input elements is represented by vectors these. Okay. Okay, so we have an edge for the value and for the key. The motivation for learning two distinct edge representations is that the edges are suitable for use in equations 3 and 4 respectively without requiring additional linear transformations. These representations can be shared across attention heads um, and using the same dimension for both. We modify equation 1 to propagate edge information to the sublayer output. Okay, by adding the edge, literally, right? Like equation 1 is just our um, the weighted sum of a linearly transform input. Yeah, so in addition to doing our projection, we add the edge, where the edge is going to be itself learned, right? This extension is presumably important for in tasks where information about the edge types selected by given attention has useful to downstream encoder decoder layers. We also importantly modify equation 2 to consider cases when determining compatibility, edge cases, no, to consider edges when determining, okay, so where's equation 2? Um, let's see. Each weight coefficient is computed using a softmax function, yep. And, and E sub ij is computed using a compatibility function that compares two input elements. So project uh, X to get the queries, project the, oh, okay. So this is just our key, our rescaled key query. Projection. Project the input to get the keys. Project, so this is just QK over square root of D. So, okay, so we are modifying our QK over square root of D by adding the edge for the key here, and then we add our edge to the, okay, so we never have just our raw projected key or a raw projected value because we're also adding the edge, our learned edge at that point. The primary motivation for using simple addition to incorporate edge representations is to enable efficient implementation. Okay, so example edges representing relative positions or the distances between elements. We learn representations for each relative position with an eclipsing distance k. Okay, so we're learning these vectors for all of the possible edge connections, which requires us to have like a fixed context length, but we're also learning the maximum relative. Okay, I'm still clipping the maximum distance. Therefore, we consider. Oh no, this is okay. So the edges that we learn are essentially at this point a position encoding that we're adding within every single like attention operation. So a lot like rope. Okay, we're back. We're back. We're back. I understand. I understand. Okay, so we have a certain number of positions and edges that we can consider, and we add to the key for the corresponding edge that we've learned as like a simple vector. What is the difference between that and rope? Is it the fact that the vector is learned is a big difference? What would be the other differences? Because it seems like you lose a lot here too. Like, especially when you're talking about audio and video. It's like with rope, you're able to do like multimodal stuff to like add more dimensions and then still have your elements like near each other. What I don't understand too is, I mean, I'm not an LLM person, but like I don't think we were ever doing this inside of our vision transformers. It's like, why do other people do this? I don't think they do. I'm still so baffled that they don't use rope in Inkling, and that evidently they found this to be better somehow. It's also interesting because it's not like people aren't playing with um, the attention in general and the way that the residuals work, and ideas kind of like this, right? Like you have manifold hyperconnections, you have residual attention, um, and attention residuals. So it's not like people aren't touching this part. It's just interesting to go, and maybe by the time they've done whatever they did for this for Inkling, maybe it looks a lot more like some of these more modern things. But the idea of not using rope at all, because it's like it also seems like you could use this with rope, make some part learnable. I don't know. Anyway, I am ignoring chat again. Okay, yeah, Hassan thinks that maybe Thinking Machines has good models, and I think maybe they do too. We'll see. I'll ask this question from the TM team LOL. I hope they'll reply as well. Isn't this very different? It is really, like, I swear that, okay, other people are doing things kind of like this now, like, especially when you look at things like manifold hyperconnection, which is from DeepSeek, right? Like, that's super different. But I still think everyone else is using some version of rope. And also, I'm not convinced that Thinking Machines isn't using some kind of rope. That doesn't simply resemble this relative position attention enough to be able to make the claim that they do. I don't know. Anyway, that's our Inkling for the day. Um, our Inkling for forever. I don't think I'll look at that ever again. We'll look at Kimi K3 now. And so Kimi K3 has made a lot of news, mainly because of not literally artificial analysis necessarily, but because of this general idea. So up until now, artificial analysis's LLM leaderboard, and pretty much all of these LLM leaderboards looked something like the best version of Claude and GPT, followed by some competitors. At times it's been, well, actually, this is really the first time it's been Grok. But GLM5 had its moment. If you remove Grok and you remove Kimi, you have to scroll through a bunch of Claude and GPT, and you'll get to GLM 5.2. GLM 5.2 was huge when it came out because it was Kimi before Kimi was Kimi, right? It was a non-frontier American model that could compete with frontier American models on all of these benchmarks. Muse Spark also had some good hype because it got high enough on this list. But yeah, it used to be you would scroll through a bunch of Claude and a bunch of OpenAI models, and then you would get to some Google, and then maybe you would scroll down a lot more and get to some Grok. But then Grok placed higher on this list. GLM is on this list. Muse Spark is on this list. Google actually needs to have a release, to feel competitive again. And you would scroll and you would start getting to some Quen, Minimax, DeepSeek. That's where Kimi would have been, etc. Right? But now, Kimi releases a model that can beat GPT 5.6 Sol high. Kimi releases a model where if Anthropic decides to put Fable only on API, suddenly you can pay Anthropic $200 a month and not have access to a model as good as Kimi K3. And this wouldn't be nearly as interesting if Kimi was just going to charge you maybe an equally large subscription to use this model. But what they're saying is that on July 27th, they will release this, I think, 3 trillion token, 3 trillion parameter model fully open. Now, is the model that they release going to be as good as the model or have the same harness as the model that they serve behind the API that gets this intelligence score with this response time, with this latency, with this supposed price? I don't know. I've seen a lot of people say that when they try to apply Kimi to their actual task, often the cost ends up being pretty similar. I've seen a lot of people that suggest that they put a lot of attention into trying to maximize their performance on benchmarks like AA to try to get some of that hype. However, they're not the first ones to do that. I promise GLM was also, and Muse was trying to benchmax this stuff. Fable, to some extent, is also trying to benchmark this stuff. 5.6 trying to benchmark this stuff, right? Everyone's trying to benchmark. Maybe Kimi is trying to benchmark harder than OpenAI or Anthropic, but certainly not harder than GLM. So it's not totally accurate to just say, oh, well, they're benchmarking. All right, let's look at the tech report. So we already looked at some of the benchmarks, and this is in general what we're going to see, especially from the benchmarks they pick. They're going to be second or third or first on pretty much all of the ones that they're choosing to show you. Although if you dig, you can definitely find ones where they're not first, second, third. Like I said, 3 trillion parameters. They plan to release it July 27th. And yeah, you can see back in April, the largest open source model we had was 1 trillion, and now we have a 3 trillion open source. So that's cool. We can talk about architecture a bit. Let me glance at chat though. Do you think it's possible to go above the 1 million context window? Sure. If we could go to 1 million, we could definitely go above 1 million. I don't know if it's the most efficient thing to do though. Um, I don't know. Training it is just harder. Using it is harder, more expensive. And then like you rely on the model learning to use that whole context effectively. I don't know. Because like part of the nice thing about constraining yourself to a certain context window is then you have the very nice problem of just making sure that when you compress things to fit in the context that you do that compression right. Whereas when you don't do that compression, you have the much more difficult problem of making sure that the model is paying attention to the things in its context properly. And that's tricky. Are you saying that K3 costs increase because it consumes more tokens? I think that's because it's on max thinking effort by default, as mentioned in the blog, although K2.6 had this overthinking problem. Yeah, I'm just saying that I've seen people say that in reality, when they actually start to use it to try to get that equal performance, not for the benchmark that it's maybe been optimized for, that they see that the token consumption outweighs the hypothetically better latency as well as the hypothetically lower cost. Also, the distillation attacks blame on Chinese open source software models need to die now. Yeah, it's stupid. Every big LLM recipe is more or less the same. You do pre-training on open source data, and what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of that. It's not like, oh, train it on the whole internet. The whole internet sucks. It's train it on a diverse set of the internet. So maybe if you take the whole internet, you could get hundreds of trillions of tokens, but you really just want to prune that down to a nice diverse set, and that'll be like your lower context pre-train. And then you'll do higher and higher context pre-trains on sources of increasingly diverse and trustworthy data, um, and longer contexts where that long context is actually meaningful. Synthetic data gets mixed in somewhere, maybe as early as the mid. I mean, there's synthetic data from the beginning in a lot of cases because there's just synthetic data on the internet and it's hard to find what is and isn't synthetic. But then you get to the end and pretty much everybody is just trying to have these RL sandboxes with, like the Inkling paper mentioned. You want to just have lots of rollouts training asynchronously and get a model that can perform very, very well in a diverse set of real tasks, including the benchmarks. Um, and to get good like completions and good reasoning traces in order to mimic, you want to use a variety of existing open source and closed sourced models. Uh, if Frontier Labs weren't doing that, their models would not be good. I suppose it's possible that Google only uses their own models to do this, or that OpenAI only uses their own models to do this, or Anthropic only uses their own models to do this. Grok and Meta definitely use other models to do this. I'd be really surprised if even the Frontier Labs are only using their models. Really, really, really surprised. We saw a release from TM. Now I think AMI is cooking. Excited for what they'll release soon. Probably non-LLM stuff. Uh, we'll see. I don't know. I will. I think. I'm very, very skeptical of AMI, but we'll see. Maybe they will release something cool. I hope they do. I have a friend that just moved to Paris to work for AMI. I hope they do great stuff. I'm just skeptical of anything that I think I'm pretty skeptical of anything that Lacuna is attached to at this point. Um okay, sorry. We wanted to look at some method here. So they give us a nice architecture diagram. Stable latent MOE and KDA modules on the left, and the attention residual operation alpha on the right, and the block attention residual backbone right. Okay, I think we need to go to um, this paper and look at this diagram just to see, like, can I okay, just to see what's changed, if anything. I don't think anything has changed, maybe. Okay, so, oh, Actually, maybe quite a bit has changed. So any given blocks, blah, 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 right here. Embedding here, that's obviously the same. We still have our alpha here with some weight here. What else are we, and then alpha and right here, okay? So that part's all the same. Um, so I don't think they've changed the way the block attention residuals work. Instead, what is changed is our MOE. See, I'm pretty sure that this, right, this attention residual operation is probably still the operation that they show here. Probably. But we now have, within a block, instead of a block being like attention MOE, attention MOE, it seems like our block is KDA stable latent MOE 3 times, and then gated MLA stable latent MOE. And okay, so the gated MLA makes sense as being fast, right? That's going to be the point of that. Um, Now I feel like I need to pull up the MLA diagram to remind myself and everyone uh, what that looks like. What is the paper that first talks about gated MLA? Oh no, so that's actually gonna be their heavy operation probably. That's just multi-head latent attention. Like that. No, no, no. That multi-head latent attention is not a fast operation, right? But gating it, what's the gating that they apply? What is the gated? Is this really the? Yeah, maybe they'll have the reference in this blog. Okay, so let's focus more on. Okay, so I don't think they changed the block residual attention though. I think we can close this and we can put this back here. And we can just focus again on what they're actually showing. Okay, so the KDA, which is Kimi delta attention, is one of their new proposals in the paper, and it looks like um, oh, convolution, right? Is that what? Yeah, lots of okay. So I was kind of saying I thought it was interesting that Inkling had this convolution. Um, Kimi delta attention has it as well. I'm also, okay, so if this is convolution here, I'm not quite sure what these are meant to represent. So I guess we can just read and see there. Uh, it also has 4 components. Okay, so these are the values, and this is the key in the query. So what are these? Is this going to be like some kind of like dense scale and then less dense shift? Because this is some linear projection, then some convolutional downsampling maybe, and then some activation, like some ReLU, and then a normalization on the key, or the query, sorry. Is that what we're seeing here? And then these are going to be smaller in terms of dimension, so this is going to be quicker? Sorry, I know it may not be fun to see me look at a diagram and just guess everything. I think it's fun, though, and we'll look at what it actually is in a second. Okay, but for the stable latent MOE, can we tell what that is from the diagram? Shared expert, routed expert. I don't know enough about MOE to know what makes this different from regular latent MOE. Like, what makes it stable? Is it the shared experts that make it more stable? Maybe they will tell me about it in the tech report. Or maybe they're just teasing me. Okay, architecture and infrastructure. What the? What are we doing? Okay, wait, video editing. Really? Okay, that sounds cool. You know, if I can use a model like this to make graphics like this, I can make videos that aren't like hilariously scuffed. and maybe people would actually watch them. That'd be pretty sick. Architecture and okay. So Kimi Delta attention and attention residuals. KDA, I think it's okay. Do you think they called it KDA like because of a reference to the League of Legends in-universe K-pop group, or in reference to the kill death assist metric that you just use in gaming in general? Or does it have nothing to do with any of that and it's a total coincidence? Curious for your thoughts. My guess is they're K-pop fans and League of Legends fans, and therefore League of Legends K-pop fans. Kimi K3 uses stable ANMOE, effectively activating 16 of 896 experts. Quantile balancing derives expert allocation directly from router score quantiles, limiting heuristic updates in a sensitive balancing hyperparameter, while per head mu1 extends mu1 by optimizing attention heads independently for more adaptive learning at scale. I think this per head mu1 is not new to theirs. If it is new to theirs, I think everyone's doing this right now. Just from talking to people, I think per head mu1 is very common. It just gives much better optimization of every head. Sigmoid tan H unit and gated MLA improve activation control and attention selectivity respectively. So this is to improve attention selectivity. I still want to know, is it that other paper we found that's their gated multi-head latent attention? Together, these advances enable stable and efficient. Okay, are they not really going to describe it at all then? Quantization word training from the. Okay, so starting in SFT, they do mixed FP4 and mixed FP8. Okay, they're not going to describe much more than this, though, are they? Okay, so I guess it's good that I tried to guess what these things in the diagram meant, because we're not going to get too much more explanation. And I don't. Have they released the code? I am very inclined to do one of those crazy deep dives that all of you hate, where I go through the code to figure out exactly how one of these fancy new attention mechanisms work. I don't think it's out yet, though. That'll have to be another day then. So me rambling while looking at the diagram is just the best we can do for now. I am curious, like maybe I'll pull up a bunch of different MOEs next to each other to get the difference. Or actually, this is a good time. Man versus machine. Okay. Should I ask the good version of this question, or should I ask the super crappy version of the question? I think I'm going to ask both of them the good version of the question. I'll ask them the crappy version of some other question. Wait, I have to log in? Okay, here we go. Let's give them access to everything. Bam. What? That sucks. What if I put it on standard? Because I bet OpenAI has me on. Dang. Okay, that would have been so fun. Okay, so we can't compare them unless I pay them money, which I'm disinclined to do right now. Oh, I can invite people and earn credits? I don't want to do that. Here, let's try one more time. Wait, what if I click? No, whatever. Okay, let's just try this guy then. That's sad. Okay, let's see if it just knows. Independent FFNs. Router chooses experts directly. Experts share a latent parameterization to reduce memory/communication. Is that what we see here? I guess, right? Because that's this linear projection. This makes it latent MOE. This linear and that linear. Oh, okay. So I guess what's happening here, and the reason, so I'm conditioned to look at this and see conv. This is some linear that projects it to some smaller dim, and this is some linear that projects it to a larger dim. Maybe I should already know this part too. This part of KDA might not be new. This is the hard part. We look at so many of these. Keeping track of like what each one does, especially since I don't work on LLMs, is kind of tricky. Okay, and then not primarily, but parameter sharing is a routing training framework to make extremely sparse MOE stable. So what's the is the special thing that we have The shared experts, is that the stable part? Hmm. Problems include, okay, so we could go, many experts become dead. Kimmy uses quantile balancing instead of saying maximize auxiliary balancing loss. It effectively adjusts routing thresholds according to the empirical distribution of router scores, so each expert receives. Can we even really see that here? I don't really understand how that's happening just looking at this. Okay, so the description is not fully public, and so that makes it a little bit hard to know. Um, so they're common in recent large MOE LLMs. Okay, so that part is not okay. So having some shared FFN always is common at this point. One weird thing is the shared experts don't seem to be latent MOE, right? Like they don't have the same like projection down and up to have the same smaller size to minimize that overhead. They seem to be at like full dimension probably, which is interesting. I suppose this is meant, by the way, to indicate basically how the routing like gives the score. I still don't understand the quantile balancing. Maybe when we look at the code, we'll understand how the quantile balancing works. Um, I guess. Okay. So do we think, based on looking at this, do we think that Kimi delta attention is probably faster than gated MLA just by virtue of operating at smaller dimension, right? Probably. But I mean, eventually it has to get back to regular token dimension. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it does operate at standard dimension. I'm just a little confused then what would be the point of like having 3 KDA and then 1 gated MLA? Like what is the why not have only Kimi delta attention? Which I don't feel like I'll know until I can look exactly at the implementation and see what the differences might be. Okay, since this is full and we can't get our thing, let's close it. And move on to, if Hassan is still here, I'll do this latent MOE paper. Oh, that's so funny. I'm talking about latent MOE. Hassan literally asked to read the latent MOE paper. That's funny. I'm stupid. I should have read this earlier. Okay, so standard MOE architecture, self-attention, then we have some router, then some all-to-all dispatch, some shared expert, and then some not shared experts, which are selected based on the scores from the router. Whereas the latent MOE architecture does a latent down, oh, so does the routing based on the full DIM, but does latent down projection for all the experts. So it does all-to-all dispatch, all-to-all combined, but on smaller latents. And the nice thing about smaller latents is they aren't just cheaper to process for the experts, they should also be cheaper to route to and from the experts. Is that the argument that they're going to make here too? Tokens are projected for the model hidden dimension to a smaller dimension for expert routing and computation, which reduces routed parameter loads. Yeah, and reduces all-to-all traffic. So it reduces the communication overhead, which is going to improve our actual utilization of the GPUs. It improves the amount of flop, like they even say it in the title. It would dramatically improve uh, our ability to even get flops out of the model. They say it's actually optimal accuracy per flop, which is interesting because I would think that what it helps is it gets like more flops per runtime. But they're even saying it gets optimal accuracy per flop, which is an interesting argument. I don't feel the need to spend too much more time on this paper because I mean, GPT just taught me the same thing that I got from looking at the paper. And look, it even had this beautiful diagram. Isn't this so helpful and easy to understand? I hate it when it draws these, by the way. Um, like GPT image works so good. Generate a beautiful diagram that I would feel proud to show my colleagues. By the way, I don't know if this prompt engineering thing even matters at all these days, but I just have fun with it. Um, Now I don't know if I know how to spell colleague. Do I not know how to spell colleague? No, I know how to spell colleague. Okay. Um, that compares standard MOE versus latent MOE. Okay, here we go. Let's see what it gives us. Man versus machine. Man generated this diagram. What does machine generate? And what is the quantile routing that Kimmy is using to get like even more sparsity? I really want to know. Which I think I'll just have to wait for their code or like a more detailed tech report. I think we got what we want from this paper though. Hassan, if you're here, are you happy with my coverage of this paper? Speak now or forever hold your peace. I've been trying to use K3 for 2 days. It doesn't work. Same error. K3 to K2.6 does work. Okay. I think we just have to give them money, Hassan, if we want to get in on the hype. Paper rec, mixture of Oh yeah, sure. Let's read mixture of transformers. I don't think we've read that one before. Okay. Not this one, right? It doesn't have enough citations. Is this the one? Tell me, Hassan, is this the right mixture of transformers paper? Here, man versus machine. Um, what is the mixture of transformers paper? This is my best effort at finding it. Oh my god, it's doing more of its diagramming. The funny thing is, when I have Codex draw diagrams for me in PDFs, they're often similarly this bad. It'll just make blocks and put lines that connect the blocks and put words in the blocks. And sometimes it puts lines between the wrong blocks. Surprisingly bad at it. Is this the right one? Okay. Wait, what? The one by AI at Meta. Yeah. Wait, did it just hallucinate that the... What? Cool. Google DeepMind, right? Weird. Here, let's harass it a little bit. This is what I get for being on the free tier. I should just go to the one where I'm logged in. Okay, wait. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of fun because on the paid tier, I haven't gotten hallucination like this in a long time. What a... That's so fun. We got a hallucination. That's cool. We should enjoy those while they last. Okay, let's see. Is this a good diagram? First, is it accurate? So we got our shared experts over here, and we've got our sparse experts here. We've got our router scores that are used for the selection. One thing I immediately don't like is we have these example router scores, but they don't actually correspond at all to what got selected, and that seems like an oversight. Like it would have been conceptually more clear to show 1, 2, 3, or sorry, to show 1, gap, 1, 2, and then like it actually matches what's being selected, right? Also, I'm a little confused because I'm pretty sure that this has to be selected. So it can't be not selected, right? Okay, latent MOE, router, small expert transforms. Ugh, this is ugly. This got kind of ugly. Shared encoder, what the? This got really ugly over here. I don't really know what's happening over here too much. And I think it added a lot of ideas that have nothing to do with latent MOE. Yeah, machine loses. It added so much detail, some of which seem wrong, others of which just make it like really cluttered and sort of misleading. But hey, it's all English. Like it's all like, sensible text, which I still kind of get a kick out of that. Okay, the machine loses this one. And it kind of got its ass beat on this one too. Like, what is happening over here? Whatever. Let's read the paper. Hey Gaston, how's it going? We're gonna look at mixture of transformers real quick. So, training models demand significantly larger datasets, blah blah blah, to address scaling challenges. A mixture of transformers, sparse multimodal transformer architecture that reduces pre-training cost. It decouples non-embedding parameters of the model by modality and enables modality-specific processing with global self-attention over the full input sequence. In the Chameleon 7B setting, MOT matches the dense baseline, blah, 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 blah. Let's just look at the diagram. Hopefully the diagram in this paper is good, and I can just show you MOT very cleanly in the diagram. Okay, so, I don't think this is the best way to show. I don't think this is the best way to show this. Let's look for another diagram. This is better. Yeah, interleave multimodal token stream, interleave multimodal token out, and we can have some autoaggressive objective, but it doesn't have to be an autoaggressive objective to be mixture transformers. That is not what makes things mixture transformers. So let's see. Okay, maybe this diagram is going to give me what I want. Oh man, it's kind of hurting my eyes though, the way that they're choosing some of this. Okay, so for each input token, MOT activates modality-specific weights, including feed-forward networks, attention, projection matrices. I don't feel like this is the clearest way to show this, though. Like, I mostly know, like, MOT is not that complicated, and this is making it seem really complicated. Okay, but yeah, you can get your interleave sequence, and then you're sort of going to regroup things to process them, like to embed them specific to whatever it is. Like you need to embed the text, the audio, the image, or the video. And then to do the joint attention, you need to put them in the actual order of the input once they've been embedded. So you embed them. So you group them to embed them. You ungroup them to actually do the joint attention in the shared feature space. Then you're going to regroup them for like the modality specific FFNs. So the FFN then has modality specific knowledge, right? So it's like the attention is basically like how all these things interact with each other, how we get image generated that depends on the text, how we get text generated that actually talks about the image. But then when we want to apply our knowledge about the world, those are like modality specific, text specific FFN, speech specific FFN, image specific FFN. Then we have to reorder it back to, be able to be output. I only don't like this diagram because it kind of doesn't make it clear how this works like across blocks. Because we're looking at the embedding, which is at the front, and then we're looking at what happens like repeated in the blocks. And I don't like that the diagram doesn't quite convey that as elegantly as I think it could. But then, yeah, you can have autoaggressive objective. You can have fully diffusion objective. I, for example, train models with MOT that are just the bidirectional diffusion objective, no autoaggressive objective. So the architecture itself is not bound to just predicting next token or to predicting all tokens. It can do both. And they show how it can do both here. What they convey here is that the image FFN is the active one when we're predicting image. I don't think that has to be totally true all the time either, because especially if I want to train this to like generate images only, I would still need to train the text. I don't need to be predicting a text token to compute a loss on the text part of the MOT, is my understanding. But maybe I'm a little mistaken. I don't think anything else here is going to be that interesting. We can look at some of the other diagrams they have. Both text and images are trained using autoaggressive objectives. I think the way they do set up in this paper, though, is they're mainly computing loss on the image FFN when they're predicting image token, which, like I said, I don't think that's how you have to do it. But I suppose it's how they do it. I don't know if there's... I don't really care about the results that they got comparing to Chameleon like 2 years ago. All three modalities are trained using autoaggressive objectives. Speech is represented as discrete tokens via pre-trained speech tokenizer. Maybe it's just conveying that this specific token itself was never routed through the speech FFN, because that's true. Even if this image token came in an interleaf sequence with the text and speech, it itself only came through the image. So I don't know. Yeah, I think the rest, I mean, I guess they keep mixing in, oh, multi-objective training in transfusion setting. Okay, here we go. They'll talk a bit about their multi-objective training. Do they talk about the methodology then in this setting at all? Transfusion introduces a unified framework. The key innovation is that the utilization of separate loss functions for each modality while sharing data and parameters within a single architecture. Here, text is trained using autoregressive objectives, while image is trained using diffusion-based objectives. Did they talk about anything in the methodology at all? Not really, it seems. Yeah, not really. Okay, that's fine. I don't think there's much else to see here other than like the specific numbers and all the different tasks. Any questions about it? Doesn't this look like a poster for a conference? Yes, it does. Did I kind of make it sound like it should give me a poster for a conference? I did. I did kind of make it sound that way, didn't I? Um, I did make it sound that way. You should ask for Tix code instead. What do you mean Tix code? Oh, what do you mean? I actually don't know what Tix code is. Uh, what if you use Tix code? I'll just, maybe it knows. How would the different modality be mixed up in the input? Why not keeping it ordered in the input? What do you mean? It would be mixed in the input because like I could, let's see. Let's try to go to the diagram. Do they actually give yeah, they give an example, or does this example not make it clear why it would be mixed? I could hypothetically give a picture of a dinosaur, say how tall is the dinosaur and then have some other picture. But yeah, in practice, they might already be separate in the input. It's true. But they do just explain that regardless of the order that the tokens are in, they still must be processed like embedded, text specific embedded, speech specific embedded, vocab specific embedded, the way that they're embedded, and also the FFN processes those tokens specifically. We don't have the same FFN across all tokens. The FFN is specific to the token type. Could we go through perceiver IO next? That's not in this paper, right? No. What's the name of the perceiver IO paper? You want to go over this? This is an old one. Old one. Was this an old multimodal approach? I almost feel like it was. Yeah, it was it was an old multimodal approach. Man, this takes me back. Okay, so maps arbitrary input arrays to arbitrary output arrays in a domain agnostic process. The bulk of the computation happens in latent space, whose size is typically smaller than the inputs and outputs. We have our standard QQV attention. And then, oh god, I actually hate this diagram. Try to remember how this worked. Once upon a time, I used this for some things. It's just been a while. So we have an input array, we have a latent array. I think these are learned latents. I think this is our input. I can't remember why we have output queries. I guess let me try to remember the point of this paper. Central goal of machine learning is the development system that can solve many problems, blah, blah, blah. General purpose architecture that handles data from arbitrary settings, augments the perceiver with a flexible querying mechanism that enables outputs of various sizes and semantics. Same architecture achieves strong results in tasks spanning natural language and vision understanding, multitask, multimodal reasoning in StarCraft 2. Okay. Where are we mapping to output arrays, though? Achieved its cross-domain generality by assuming that its input is a simple 2D byte array, set of elements, which might be pixels or vision patches. The model then encodes blah, 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 rather than output as a single category. Perceiver IO aims to have the same generality with respect to its outputs as the perceiver has with respect to its inputs. That is, it should produce arbitrary output arrays. We can predict each element of the output array using another attention module by querying the latent array using a query frame feature vector unique to the desired output element. In other words, we define a query array with the same number of elements as the desired output. Okay. Huh. So we get our output array by defining like an arbitrary array of some size. And then we also have some latent array. Our input attends with our latents wants to encode, and then we have some self-attention. Okay, so we have cross-attention between our latents, which are learned, and our input, and then we have some self-attention. It looks like the cross-attention happens one time, and then the self-attention happens many times. And then we have cross-attention with whatever our output query array is with this input aligned latent array to give our actual outputs. I totally forgot about this approach. Like I've known this at some point, but now it's like I'm learning it for the first time again. We construct queries with output specific features to produce outputs with different semantics. For settings where each output point differs only in its position, like language, a position bank can be used. Input feature for the target output can also be used to query either alone or alongside position features. For multi-task modal settings, we use one embedding for each task instead of each position, a single learned embedding. Okay, so what are we looking at here? I think it's saying these are this is the construction of the output queries. Man, this is complicated. They have it predict optical flow. Given two images in the same sequence, the task is to estimate the tedious placement of each pixel. What the heck? They trained it on optical flow. This is kind of interesting. How many parameters did this model have? It's tiny, right? Our experiments with pixels and patches use sine, cosine, position encoding, blah, blah, blah. For experiments without concatenated frames, we also have additional time dimension for this version. Only the elements, blah, blah, blah. We use a latent array with 2048 elements and 5 digital channels and 24 self-attention modules, each with 16 self-attention heads. Our experiments with convolutional downsampling and wrapped up sampling use settings that are mostly similar, although we use no additional projection. For these experiments, the output for pixel and patch-based models total computational complexity for a forward pass, and there are roughly 28 million parameters. Or here they even say 20 million parameters. This is a tiny model. Right, let's just check params, because sometimes you... Oh, they have... Okay, so they have some larger stuff too. Perceiver IL++, 425 million params. But still, nothing even a billion. I mean, this was a while ago, so like there's not a lot of stuff at the time that was a billion parameters anyway. Interesting. Did they do like any ImageNet classification stuff? Kind of curious how it performed on that. Now I'm wondering if I never knew this. It feels so new to me that, like I said, I probably knew it before, but maybe I didn't. Please read the appendix. Why? Okay. Um, okay, let's just... The table itself should mention ImageNet, right? Oh my God. Yeah, it's like we have to have a different architecture basically for every task, which is kind of weird. So it's like a model that can do any task, but you have to train it specifically for that task, I think. Or at least you have to learn latents for it. I don't want to spend enough time to figure out exactly how they tend to initialize their output latents for the different tasks. It looks like it ends up being very handcrafted to every different task. Like there's not a lot that's super general. I'm surprised I didn't know this though, because oh, it's pre-trained. Okay, so I guess this is the number to go by, but like both these numbers are pretty decent even now. Where the state of the art, like a Dino VITL is like 87 something, but that was just barely this last year. I mean, this was a really good number on ImageNet for the time. Really good. I guess you could get some super fancy bespoke thing that was better than it, but um, or I guess supervised things, fully supervised VITH. Still though, I mean this is seems pretty decent. I don't understand the role of the conv in this at all. They're mentioning convs when they do image stuff, but I didn't really see conv in the yeah. I mean, they barely even mention like okay, so for multimodal autoencoding, I don't under like I are you happy with my coverage of Perceiver IO, Gaston? If you ask me a specific question, I'll try to dig for specific detail. Fully covering the paper seems like more work than I wanted to do right now, or like more of a detour than I was hoping for. So let me know. Lone, hey man, I'm curious how about how you use sorry, I can't read today. Yep, it's great. Thanks. Okay, cool, Gaston. Awesome. I'm free. Okay. How you use AI in research? Do you ask for ideas or you use only for coding or something? That's a great question. Let me use the bathroom and then I will answer that question. I will be right back. BRB 2 minutes. I'm gonna get water as well. So hang on. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Please someone confirm for me that the audio is decent, and that will give me some peace of mind. Also, I need to, since I'm sitting here for so long, I actually need to check on a couple of work things. So I'll kind of do that in the background. Okay, but we need to try to transition to man versus machine, and I also need to answer um, Lone's question, and then Gaston has some questions. The problem is the free tier ChatGPT just freaking sucks. So, um, do I just pay real quick? I mean, but like I have okay, I could sign into my work one and use that. Is that what we do? Because this segment's just kind of buns if it's free tier. Maybe not. I mean, maybe we try. Maybe the whole point is still to see what we get of the free tier. Yeah. I like it fine that way. It's not exactly seeing like pushing the boundaries, but yeah, what do we get out of the free tier? I think Lone's question will help us segue over to this segment. So, do I ask AI for ideas in research? Yes. Do I give a lot of credence to its ideas? Not necessarily. And also, like these days, what I do in terms of research are not like super. Like I work on some hard things, but they're not necessarily super like academically challenging things. That being said, I'm not saying that the models couldn't tackle those things or handle those things or help on those things. And I also haven't like been able to use 5.6 on anything that hard yet. Um, it's tricky. So I'm trying to think of stuff I can share versus can't share. Like I'll be able to share way more once we have some tech report, but right now I'm just trying to be careful. I would love to give examples, but I don't want to violate the terms and conditions of my employment by sharing examples. One thing, the overarching thing that I'm trying to do with the tools, beyond using it to do research or using it to write code, is I would really like to turn every process I create for anything that I do at work into something that I can have the LLM manage end to end totally on its own. Um, so it's kind of like I want to try to figure out what are like the pieces, what is work and what are the pieces that comprise work and who is responsible for each piece and tying those pieces together and tying those pieces together. And once everything's been tied together, who manages actually like using that process to accomplish something? Ideally, I would like layers of agents or the same agent working in different places to be able to handle all of those things. Places where that already works pretty well is like, um, let's say I have a two-stage pipeline in one place and a two-stage pipeline in another place, and I just want to combine them. I can point an agent at both and tell it to do that, and it can do that with fairly little interference. I try to give you enough detail to where it understands what I want, and I encourage it to ask questions. And I obviously use like some kind of planning phase to do this. But sometimes I'll give it more researchy things like I want to be able to see. I can't give the specific example, so let's think of like a fake example. Um, here's something I've never done, but it's a flavor of a thing I would do. I want to be able to tell if these videos have a camera that's under the water. How can I do that? It gives some ideas. If any of them sound good to me, I say, okay, sure, that one. Occasionally, I will also just tell it, like, I want to solve this problem. These are the two metrics that matter for this problem, and the data you can compute those metrics on. Do whatever the heck you want. Typically, when I do that, its ideas are all, even if the ideas end up working, they're pretty disgusting. Like one time that I did something like that, it ends up computing 250 different metrics scores, and the final best decision is a weighted combination of 6 of those 250 scores. It solved the problem well. It actually solved it better than the best open solution I could find. It was nasty though. Um, so it works fine if you can tolerate nastiness. It works fine if you can tolerate prototypes. It works fine if you can tolerate things not necessarily being interpretable. It also works fine if the solution to your problem is just a linear combination of things that exist. It's not super creative. I wish I could find. I should have saved this to share with you. I think I saw somewhere that someone did a benchmark where they had human and machine do research like tasks, and like the human maybe was combining existing ideas in a clean way like 10% of the time, but for the AI it was closer to 60. However, I will say the thing I think is really weird about that, if the human is combining like 10%, the AI is combining 60%, that's just like a marginal difference in magnitude. The AI is still doing the like new idea thing a lot of the time. And sometimes I feel like what it does is kind of creative. So I don't know. I guess the shortest answer to your question, Lone, is I'm using it as much as I can. I'm using it to do as many things as I can possibly do, and I'm interfering only when it does it wrong or like messes up or gets stuck. That also means I have to keep a close eye on it though, and I have to know and really think a lot about those criteria. How do I know it's performing well? How do I know it's failing? How can I get it to know when it's failing or it to know when it's doing well? Like one issue I had this week is I have one of it managing one of my long running processes over like a few hundred nodes, so a few thousand GPUs. Um, it's the babysitter, and I woke up one day at like 8 a.m. and I checked, and the job had basically been idle for 3 hours. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? It's like, well, these guys are in the tail. They're processing the tail. And I don't know if they got stuck on some work units that actually take a really long time. I think they were actually just like frozen slash dead, but the model wasn't curious enough to investigate that root cause on its own. And it also thought that if there was this tiny tail, that instead of proceeding to the next set of work units, it should just sit there and let them basically waste 3 hours of like 2,000 nodes, or sorry, 2,000 GPUs. That's not actually a tolerable trade-off in the operational regime that I have, right? I told like we can catch these later while all the machines are running instead of just having a few machines work on just a couple of them. Like we could do all these tails together, move on. Like you should have just flushed these. And it's like I can appreciate it not knowing that. I maybe even have some colleagues where if I put them in the job, they would have done the exact same thing and thought that it was right. But it is objectively wrong. The job is to get the process done in the shortest possible time, and that doesn't happen if we idle most of the cluster to get the tail on every batch of work units. So when we're babysitting, we simply have to kill it at that point, move on, and then we'll catch those later. So, but however, it has gotten to the point where I'm mainly talking about like, is it verifiable that it made the wrong choice, and could you deduce it from first principles? Yes, but lots of smart humans would make the same mistake. So I don't know. That's a very rambly answer to a very simple question. Hopefully, there's some helpful things in there. What would you recommend to a junior starting in AI research code-wise for someone who is with reading Python but struggling to write from scratch because of lack of practice? Okay, man versus machine. Man versus machine. I'm gonna paste your question in ChatGPT. Free tier. So I'm competing against like a nerfed version, right? This is so wordy. Why is it so wordy? Okay, this is really funny. Instead of opening VS Code and thinking I'll implement flash attention, start with okay. I'm kind of thinking I just need to log in because this is crazy. Or like upgrade or something. Um no, this is actually decent though, like if you keep reading. And this is what I recommend to a lot of people. Maybe I should give my answer and then look at its answer. That's a better way to do this segment. Okay, so I'll answer your question and then we'll look at what the machine said. So if you are asking me here, Matt GPT, uh, new. Okay. And let's like make it big. Okay. So if you're asking me, how would you recommend to a junior starting AI research code? So I recommend first learn concepts. So maybe that's like maybe that's MIT OpenCourseWare on the subject. Maybe that's the one Stanford course. Maybe that's the Andrew Ng Coursera for like general things. Maybe it's some like Carpathy thing. Maybe it's like three blue, one brown. Maybe for especially for more specific stuff, maybe it's a job in video, right? We talked about him earlier in the stream. Learn the concept first. Whatever the concept is related to the thing that you want to do coding wise, make sure you know the concept in your head, that you could whiteboard it. Because then the only gap is like understanding how to map that into some framework. Um, and so from there, I would say like let's say you don't know PyTorch, or you don't know TensorFlow, or you don't know JAX, or you don't know whatever it is you're trying to do. Um, I would do the general tutorial, and PyTorch is what I know the most, so do like the general PyTorch tutorials. To be clear, those are like, and to do the PyTorch tutorials, it's kind of tricky. Like you can read their own quick start and stuff, and like tensors, and I would read their explanations. I would copy and run their stuff. Once you get through their tutorial, I would then try to do one of these things, implement something you understand conceptually without any reference, and only come back to the reference as you get stuck. So I guess this is kind of 1A and 1B. These can be done in parallel. Try, implement concept, check docs. So check docs whenever for specific things. Check working reference only if totally stuck. And I think this actually infinitely scales to any concept. Like make sure you know some framework, make sure you know whatever the concept is, and then make yourself implement the concept, check the docs for whatever specific things, and check the working reference only if totally stuck. And so it used to be that if you saw some closed source paper and you wanted to try the idea, you would have to do the code. Now AI could do any of those, but it's still a decent exercise for you to find a paper whose code exists or whose code doesn't exist, have the AI write the code, but don't look at the code, and try to do it yourself, and you can compare against the working reference. You shouldn't do this after you have learned, but this is probably the best way to learn. Okay, let's see how much this said. Okay, stop writing from blank files. Copy a minimal example, modify it again. I mean, this would be for writing your own idea though. So this would be like the way to start, which isn't exactly what you said, but maybe it's what you meant. Well, except it's not what to do saying I'll implement flash attention. Because I think if you're just trying to re-implement flash attention, you should do it my way. But this would be a good thing to do if you have some idea for how you want to change flash attention. Copy all of flash attention actually, and then just make modifications. Yeah, re-implementing tiny things is good. It says don't build a transformer immediately. I would just build a transformer immediately. That's pretty simple code. I don't know. Like rotary embedding is way more complicated than standard transformer. But these are all good exercises. So these are good ideas. Read one excellent repository deeply. I don't know if that matters at all. I don't know if that's a good use of your time. Build tiny research reproductions. This is starting to get really redundant, right? I think this gave you the good guidance, and this was kind of dumb. This is redundant. This is okay, but this is kind of like eventually you're not going to write code ever again. It's good to know debugging principles, I suppose, but you're also not going to debug by hand ever. So I don't know if this is very valuable these days. Use AI as a pair programmer, not as an answer machine. This is okay to some extent, but like in 2026, it is an answer machine. You need to learn how to use an answer machine. To some extent, there's no utility in learning to do a thing you don't need to do and using AI as a nerfed version of what it actually is. It is an answer machine. It is, what the hell did I just click? It is a programmer. Like it seems like it's regurgitating advice that it's read on Reddit from like a year ago, or maybe bad advice from today. Type code every day. This is good for when you're learning. And I think, okay, like I'm speaking as a person who hasn't written code in a couple months, probably. I still think it's important to learn for now. I'm not sure if that'll continue to be true. While you are learning, it's probably important to type code every day. That's how you learn. It's also important, like, you do need to have time. I don't think it's using as a pair programmer is whatever. There is probably time, like I said, where you just need to sit there and force yourself to re-implement something without its help, especially because interviews are mostly still AI free, and you'll be expected to do this kind of stuff without help. And so you just want to know how to do this, if for no other reason than to pass the interviews. I don't know if this is ever really that helpful these days. This is the way, though, to make sure you get good. Is this a good 6-week roadmap? No. There's no reason you should be waiting to do this until week 3, unless you're learning everything from the beginning. This could easily be the thing you do on day 1 or day 2. Same thing, like you're not going to do attention for a week unless you're spending like 1 hour a week or something. Same thing. This should be like one of the earlier things you potentially build, like an end-to-end project. Oh, and that's something I should say. I suppose I think most value is in re-implementing tiny things, but there is some value in like trying to implement some good project. Or you could even take a good project, delete some of the code, and try to fill in the blanks based on the concepts you understand, and then run the things end to end. And you can obviously learn different things by doing different things, right? Like if you're going to train Nano GPT on a tiny data set, I don't want you to be paying so much attention to the like code implementation. I want you to pay more attention to the loss, the gradient norm, and the param norms. Like training a thing isn't really a coding task. It's a different kind of task altogether, that you learn in a totally different way. Oh, whatever. Okay, so that's me versus ChatGPT. Would you recommend learning how to code by hand without agents being way less productive? For some period of time while you don't know, yeah, you're not gonna be able to pass interviews if you can't code by hand, unfortunately, for at least another little bit. I am confused at how much learning how to code with bare hands matters in today's world. It doesn't matter, like I said, except for passing interviews. But maybe it matters to, like, maybe the reason I'm good at using ChatGPT is because I can code by hand, hypothetically. I don't know. That's something I worry about sometimes. Maybe if you don't know how to do it by hand, you'll just always be worse than me at using the tool. I have no idea. But at the same time, I don't know how to like do compilers, and I felt like I was always decent at writing code. I also like I did the 2 assembly assignments that every CS major does. I don't know how to write assembly code, but I feel like I can write code, and that's kind of the same thing. Kind of hard to find the discipline to do the learning effort when you see how time consuming it is. Would love some advices from you because it's really a disturbing time to be in as a junior. Yeah, it is a hard time to be in as a junior, Gaston. Um, it's probably worth your time though still. Like I said, if for nothing else than to be able to pass interviews. I also think though, like I said, we were looking at Kimmy and the diagram, right? I don't quite get it from the diagram. And even once I read their archive, if they end up having one, I still might not get it, and I'll finally get it when I read the code. But I might not really get it from reading the code. I might only feel like I get it, and I would really get it if I wrote the code. So writing the code can still be a way to like really deeply understand something. Kind of like how when you work out a proof yourself, you learn the concept way more deeply than if you just read the proof in the textbook. And if you teach someone the concept, you learn it way more deeply, maybe even than if you had to just do the proof. So it's different levels. And yes, learning something deeply simply takes time. And this is a good time for a reminder. Like, there was some viral tweet I saw where someone says, I'm surprised language learning hasn't taken a huge leap since we have all these AI tools and learning whatevers. And the reason it hasn't, I think, is because learning a language just involves putting in time and doing the boring work of sitting there and forcing yourself to do something you suck at. Trying to speak to people with words you don't know, looking up things so that you know what to say to those people, trying your best to understand them without the lazy fallback of pulling out the translation app or like having them speak your language. That's just time. And you can't hack the fact that it just requires time to learn things, or you can't hack it past a certain point. So I think if you want to learn this stuff, Gaston, you're just going to have to put in the time. And you're going to have to be careful because people like me are going to sit here and say like, oh, I haven't touched VS Code in 2 months, but I touched it a lot before that. And some of that time you might just have to put in as sweat equity. But you can also just try to push the boundary on what you can accomplish without it, and you can see how far you can get. If you can get good results at that doing what I do, then maybe you don't need to understand the things that I understand. That could be true. New U.S. law caps foreign student visa. Oh yeah, I saw. I don't think. I saw some of my friends talking about this. Because I don't understand immigration law very well. Let me see what my friends were saying. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I'm confused by it honestly. Um, yeah, Hassan, we can I don't know. It is a bad answer. I bet we would get a better answer from the paid tier. It's just like signing in and then I have all my like actual work on the sidebar. I need to think about how to make this segment good for next time we want to run it. But yeah, I think I beat the free tier of ChatGPT. Hooray for me. Do you think? Yeah. So I. Oh, I will say. Uh, I don't think like AI PhD should take 5 to 6 years these days. You should probably want to get out in 3 or 4 years anyway. So maybe it just forces you to finish as fast as you should want to and forces your advisor to let you graduate. So maybe it's a good thing in a twisted way. Do I have a plus or pro sub on OpenAI? Through Workiston, I have unlimited tokens. So like right now, I have like 4 ultras on fast mode, like GPT 5.6 Soul Ultra, just spinning, working on things. And I don't have to worry about rate limits or token cost or anything. My employer just pays for all of it. Uh, okay, sorry. Do you think one can be a researcher and a software engineer, both of them at the same time? Um, Software engineer and researcher are two things that are very hard to define. I think in practice, most researchers in industry operate at some intersection of both. Ways in which I don't consider myself an engineer, at least for now, is I might build systems that have to operate at absurd scale, but they aren't very robust, and they're very hard for people to use that aren't me. So I suppose in some ways I draw the line between researcher and engineer, just in the sense that I'm kind of a bad engineer. But I'm also kind of a good engineer, because like I can spin up the system that can process, 5 million hours of video in a few days, and I can do that in like on a very crazy time crunch, and then I can run it and get it done, right? That's not really research. You don't learn in the PhD how to run things on 250 nodes and how to optimize the overlap between like different CPU pools and GPU pools that do different tasks and all sorts of crazy stuff like that. But like that is engineering. Um, so I guess we're all kind of software engineers because I think if I told a professor that that's what I do, they would tell me it's not research. Yeah, yeah. I think once you get into industry, a lot of the stuff you do is basically engineering. Whether you have to do that really, really well or whether you can get away with doing it the way I do it is another question. And I am trying to hire people to take some of the monstrosities I build and make them less monstrous, more maintainable, easier for other people to run, stuff like that. Although maintainability means a totally different thing in the AI era. I did notice something. I had like there was this pipeline that got passed from older versions of Claude to newer versions of GPT and then to mine, and eventually it got so disgustingly like impossible to read that my GPT just refused to work on it in ways that reflected what I asked for. Like over and over, I'd ask it to do something, and it would say it was done, and it just didn't do the thing. And eventually, I realized the system had just gotten too big, and I basically like rewrote it from the ground up. That was kind of crazy though. So maintainability definitely probably still matters, but in a different way, I guess. If the only people that are ever going to work on it are actually not people at all, but rather agents, people's agents. How much time did you take to complete your PhD? Um, I took 5 years, But I have friends at the company I work at that started in the batch after me that finished at the same time as me. One of them did 3.5 years, another did 4 years, um, another did 4.5. I saw someone else recently that was like 3. It's becoming more common to do it shorter. And it should become more common to do it shorter because you can be so much more productive with an AI tool that the only way to keep you there is to force you to produce even more. And that feels unfair and a little silly. There's also just a lot of like, it's hard because like you need to learn a lot of things, and some of them like are very hard to learn just in the academy. And so it's like, in some ways, I feel like working in industry, I've finally been able to finish what I started in my PhD. It's like I feel like I've learned more in the last 4 months than I learned maybe in the last 3 years of my PhD. Not to say I wasn't learning in those 3 years or that I didn't need those, but it's like in some way, staying there longer does block you from like further growth. And it's like you build a good foundation, but it's important not to just like languish there and let it drag out, I guess. Yeah. Okay, we can do the man versus machine segment better later. I need to think about it more. I think it's a decent idea, but obviously this wasn't like the most compelling way to run it. Someone was asking about longer than 1 million context length earlier. Check this out. 2 million token context. Is this model snapshot and a group of responses, long story value to the shared prompt once, stores model specific state, then replays one response at a time and accumulates gradients. Quen keeps the recurrent state in sharded KV pages. GLM keeps. Wait, what? Oh, so do they not actually keep the 2 million tokens in the same context? They split it between like two different. What? I'm confused. So post-training workloads often don't have enough tokens and rely on length generalization. But training on such long things is really expensive. An architecture where execution stack for a million token RL post-training under a fixed GPU budget. Long story value to share prompt once without automatic differentiation. Retains only the model specific state required by layer tokens and replays short response branches one at a time under autograd. Oh, okay. So these aren't like two branches. This is just two different instantiations of what they do. Interesting. I'm confused about what they're doing versus what they're just describing to me about how the model works. Um, Sorry, I'm not really sure how to interact with this paper. Like most papers, I feel like I know where to go to see what I want. With this one, I'm super lost. I understand the gist of it, which is take the long prompt and do prefill. That I get. That's not very interesting. And I don't know where to go to understand the rest. I mean, I could read the abstract. I think the fact I'm not knowing how to engage with this is a sign that my brain is just getting a little tired and that I'm a little distracted by that little thing in the back of my head that says I should really check on my work agents. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what it's telling me. Let's see if we can find something that's going to be like feel really cool while I finish eating this wrap. Let's call this a wrap. Let's pretend I didn't just put salami and cheese in a tortilla, and let's call it a wrap. No vision papers today? I mean, I'm going off recommendations. Are you saying we're not looking at any? I mean, this is a vision paper here. Uh, I'm trying to find a compelling vision paper. I'm looking. These are some vision things. Let's speed date these papers. Okay, so vision generation models are general purpose vision foundation learners. Oh God. Okay, real quick. So video diffusion models are pre-training based to capture rich blah 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 during multitask post-training. Feed forward model fine-tune on predominantly synthetic data. What? Okay. Maybe it's synthetic because then we can get our annotations ground truth, I guess. Genception shows strong. Sorry. Speed dating's good. I also want to make sure I'm saying what I'm thinking clearly. So the reason that we would want to use synthetic data is because if I have real data, but I want to do like depth prediction, I need to know the depth in that data, and I don't know it. I would need some model to predict it or humans to annotate it or something. Whereas if I generate synthetic data, I can generate it with like already knowing the ground truth depth. Like I could have a depth map first and then make something that respects that depth map. And then I actually know the real depth, right? So that's the reason to use synthetic data. Strong performance with intriguing emerging behaviors, seamless sim-material transfer, which is good. The risk of training on synthetic is you can actually use it on real data, but they're saying they can. And they're saying it generalizes as well. I think the main thing I want to see from here is just like which models do they actually try? Looks like some of the small ones, but also okay. Also they Wayne 14B. And lower is better. Okay. And then this is their generalist model, which sometimes outperforms their specialist, which is interesting. They're saying for some tasks that Sam does, it outperforms Sam, outperforms Dart. Doesn't outperform VGGT Omega, but outperforms Depth Anything. That's interesting. What is ours, generalist? Like what model is it? This is important. Outperforms VJPA Video MAV2 under the same fine-tuning data, which suggests that training a video generative model might be a better way to even do these discriminative tasks than training the latent embedding model, which I've always wanted this to be true, but it's never quite been true. I would love if this is as true as it seems, but I'm skeptical. I kind of just want to see. Oh, by the way, sorry, I glossed over the figure that explains what this is way too fast. Um, we just have like we put task heads on top of the DIT backbone. That's all. Like we take token outputs from the DIT and send them through a head that can predict the things for whatever the task is. Nothing crazy. Pretty simple, which is nice. It's satisfying that it's simple this way. Oh, you can also see it here. Um, video tokens in, video tokens out. Predict the normal or the depth or anything. Um, while fine-tuning this pre-trained DIT, or we can have some learnable token that comes in along with the video and the text, and that'll give us the tokens that are for our sparse tasks, whether it's classification, key points, pose, whatever. So the big idea here is that when the model learns to generate the video, it already has the knowledge needed to understand and therefore be able to predict normals, foreground, pose, key points, camera, whatever. You simply need to do some tuning with that data to unlock the ability to give that prediction. you would hope that it can do this. You would hope that if you're training a model on 1 billion videos to be able to generate videos, to do it well, it has to understand these things. So that understanding is there. This paper seems to be showing that it is there. I'm continuing to scroll because, okay, this is cool, I guess. So this is generating, let's see, what's something that you would understand easily? I guess depth you should be able to understand, right? This stuff is far from the camera. Like basically the further I go, the further from the camera, except this weight that's right in front of me is close to the camera, right? That's what we're seeing here. So they're just showing us it can predict these things really, really well to my subjective glance. But the numbers in the experiments will tell us really how well it does, right? We already know that on depth, it's going to be worse. Their generalist is going to be, sorry, where's their generalist? Ah, here it is. We know their generalist is worse than their specialist. Their generalist is worse than VGGT Omega. However, their specialist is better than VGGT Omega for depth on Sintel, but not on Kitty. I do want to know real quick, what is the difference between their generalist and their specialist? Let's grab that real quick. Okay. I really wish that was easier to find. Okay, so WAN 2.1 is the backbone. I'm not sure if it's the 1.3B or the 14B, but I'm guessing it's the 14B. I don't understand which one's their specialist and which one's their generalist, which makes me very sad. Oh, I would hope that the generalist means it's a single fine tuning on all tasks, and then it can do all tasks with all the different heads. I think. I'm going to assume that, oh, denotes a model trained on each task individually, whereas the generalist represents a single model trained jointly across multiple tasks. Great. So it's amazing that the generalist does that well, because look at the radar plot. I mean, the generalist is doing tasks, like all these different tasks, and none of these vision models even touch all these different tasks, but their generalist does. And their specialists are pretty good too. Okay, I like this. I like this. I like this. It is very promising. Um, the one thing that I feel like it's missing is a lot of people want to take these models and make them be basically VLAs, or they want to take the generation model and make it predict the action. Um, a lot of people are trying to do that. I may have even seen some preprints that do, and they don't try to do that. But I think it's just an artifact of when they did the work. You know, they're not doing it right now. They did it, who knows when. Was it an intern paper or was it from the full-time team? Uh, an intern paper, maybe. I'm not going to do too much digging. So maybe it was even done last summer, basically, which would explain a lot about the model choice and other things. Okay. Uh, No vision pay. Okay, take some time off to go check on the no problem brain energy consumed as of now. Well, I did just do another paper, and I'm glad we did. I hadn't seen that one in my channels for some reason. I might go proactively share it somewhere. I will check on work real quick, but then we can do more papers. Just give me a minute. What's making me authenticate? Lame. Okay. I have to make sure. I left at least one of them pursuing goal. No, two of them were pursuing goal. One of them, no, three of them were probably pursuing goal. The other one may not have been pursuing goal, so that one probably got stuck on something. But sometimes, since their update, even my goal pursuers get stuck, like, on not rate limits, but it'll be like, oh, this is taking a bit. Want to switch to a lower model? If any of you know how to, like, put some default for that so it never asks me again, that would be awesome. Because that is becoming the bane of my existence. Why are we stuck? Ugh, crap. This isn't good. It's taking a minute to log in. Let's try the other login node. Permission denied. Okay, well, hopefully this login node lets me in eventually. Scary time as I wait for a login node. Scary, scary. Okay. Here, give me a second. I'm gonna check a couple other things. I want to do better segments in the stream, but that requires being disciplined to like move from segment to segment, which is kind of tricky. And also coming up with good segments and preparing like the right amount. I attempted to do that today with the man versus machine thing, but it was pretty bad. I need to think more about it. Let's look at what is this? Boosting open source unified multimodal understanding and generation. Okay, what does this model do? Kind of want to just go look at the ooh, that's not a lot of training data. Arena style ELO score, but they have their own arena, so I'm immediately skeptical. Immediately skeptical. Let's look at some examples though. Weird that they don't have images until I get here, and then it's okay. Yeah, I mean these are fine. They're not quite as text dense, I think, as a lot of what some people would try to show off. A lot of like anime things too, which make it a little tricky to evaluate just at a glance. It's decently, I mean, this is kind of, and this is not good. This is bad. The colors here are weird. A lot of these examples are not very good. So I'm a skeptic. But they said unified, right? So this is some text to image. They said there's understanding as well, so let's look for that. Okay. Do we not actually have understanding benchmark in the paper? We just put that in the title to troll? I guess that's okay. I could be also just mentally blind. That's a possibility. Image to image. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Let's just keep scrolling. Let's be patient. It's probably just later. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Man, it's a lot of results. What? Now we're getting to experimental analysis. Some good details. Ooh, model routing. Design a system, an agent decides which model to invoke. The output's a boogie one. Oh, so they have a router to route you between their fast and their not fast. I don't think, I think they're saying that they have some understanding of images. Like, we can go scroll to that section in a minute. I was really hoping I would just see like benchmarks, understanding benchmarks, but that's not what they meant. So we're not going to see that. Scrolling to make sure that's true. Man. Oh. Okay, here we go. Multimodal learning and understanding. Multimodal understanding means something, guys. Words have meaning. We can't just say them to say them. Really annoying. The optimization objective is quality and efficiency, where quality is determined by the alignment between the user's intent and the generated image, and efficiency is measured by the computational cost. Instruction encoder. We observe that many strong blah 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 are limited not only by the general components, by inaccurate understanding of the text. A weak encoder, blah blah blah. This view is consistent with blah blah blah. We find that scaling the frozen instruction encoder alone yields. Yep, having good encoder is good. Quin3, okay, that's it. So they said understanding, and all they mean is instead of T5 or something, it's just Quen3 VLL. That's annoying. Okay, That's pretty annoying. Yeah, it doesn't show up on artificial analysis T2I. Thanks for checking. I'll take your word for it. I've looked at it recently too, and I would have remembered seeing something named Bugu. Sorry, I just realized I should post that I'm unable to get into my login node, so I did. All right, I think I'll call it here. We had a good stream. Thanks everyone for hanging out. Um, maybe I'll stream during the week. I always want to. I never do, but maybe this week I will. Until next time, take care. Bye for now.